Billionaire shoved a black CEO into a pool. Minutes later, his empire collapsed. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. Go take a bath, you filthy trash. The words cut through the string quartet like a slap. Crystal laughter froze mid-air, and in that instant every chandelier in the Langford estate seemed to stop shimmering. The crowd turned just in time to see it, the billionaire host Arthur Langford in his cream tuxedo shoving a woman in an emerald gown straight into the pool. The splash echoed across marble and glass. Champagne flutes trembled, gasps bloomed like gunfire. The woman surfaced slowly, her curls clinging to her face, mascara tracing rivers down her cheeks. Yet her eyes, steady, sharp, unbroken, were what made the room fall silent. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Amara Blake. The night had begun as elegance, a charity gala of white linen and false smiles. The elite of Crescent City toasted to unity under chandeliers taller than most dreams. But when Amara, a black woman in a floor-length gown that shimmered like liquid jade, stepped onto the terrace, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned. Whispers started. They didn't know her name. They just decided she didn't belong. Arthur Langford's silver hair, slicked with arrogance, spotted her near the champagne fountain. "Well, well," he said loudly enough for 10 conversations to stop. "Did someone let the staff wander into the VIP circle?" The words earned nervous chuckles from his entourage. Amara simply looked at him, not down, not up, just through him, as if measuring something invisible. That stillness made him flinch. So he did what cowards do when grace unnerves them. He attacked it. With one theatrical push, she was in the water. Now the party was divided. Half amused, half horrified, all complicit. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another muttered, "Is she gonna sue?" But Arthur just grinned, spreading his arms like a king before a conquered crowd. "See, folks, money can buy you a ticket, but it can't buy you class." Amara's hands found the pool edge. The silk clung to her like armor, not shame. Around her, reflections of diamonds and disdain rippled across the surface. She could taste chlorine and contempt. She exhaled slowly. The calm before a storm only she knew was coming. From somewhere near the bar, a young woman, journalist badge pinned discreetly, raised her phone. "Wait," she whispered to her colleague. "Is that Amara Blake, the CEO of Echelon Group?" He frowned, confused. "The logistics conglomerate," she nodded, heart racing. "The one that owns Langford Holdings." But the crowd didn't hear her yet. They were too busy watching a soaked black woman climb out of the pool like a statue resurrected. The emerald gown glistened under the chandeliers, every droplet refracting light like defiance itself. Arthur smirked. "Next time, darling, bring a towel." Amara turned toward him silent. Her gaze didn't rise or tremble. It just landed, steady, cold, deliberate. And for the first time all evening, Arthur Langford's smile faltered. He'd wanted to humiliate her in front of everyone. Instead, he just announced his own downfall. The camera lights clicked. The violin stopped pretending. And justice, though quiet, had already entered the room. The pool still shimmered like a wound. Guests began to murmur again, laughter returning in small, nervous waves, as if politeness could erase what they had just witnessed. Arthur Langford lifted his glass, pretending control had never slipped from his hand. "Let's not ruin the evening," he said, smiling to no one in particular. "Accidents happen." But everyone knew it hadn't been an accident. The hush that followed was thick and careful. Cameras clicked again. A few guests quietly slipped their phones out, pretending to check messages while filming under the chandeliers. Amara Blake stood on the marble edge of the pool, her gown clinging like liquid emerald. Her lipstick smudged her hair damp, yet her posture unshaken. She didn't flinch, didn't shout. She simply turned toward the glass doors leading back into the ballroom. Every heel click echoed like judgment. Near the bar, Lydia Chen's hands trembled around her phone. The young journalist looked at the footage she had just captured, the shove, the insult, the silence afterward. Her editor's voice echoed in her mind, "Find the story no one else dares to print." She whispered to her colleague, "That's her right, Amara Blake. Echelon Group." He frowned. "She owns half this city's logistics ports." Lydia swallowed hard. "And Langford Holdings is one of them." Arthur noticed her glance. He raised his voice again, louder this time, to reassert dominance. "See, people," he said, chuckling. "The new rich think one gala invitation makes them royalty, but class," he tapped his chest, "can't be bought." The laughter this time was smaller, unsure. No one dared clap. The violinist stopped mid-note, pretending to tune his strings just to avoid eye contact. Inside, Amara walked slowly through the ballroom, water dripping on the polished floor. Waiters froze mid-step. Conversations halted. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet. She passed by mirrors and chandeliers that reflected her like a moving storm. A man in a silver suit whispered near the buffet, "She should just leave. Make it easy." His companion replied, "You don't push someone into a pool and call it a misunderstanding." Amara reached a small corner table near the terrace doors, her phone vibrating softly in her clutch. A message flashed from Elena, "Standing by for your call. Do you want to proceed?" She didn't reply. Not yet. Her calm wasn't hesitation. It was calculation. Across the room, Arthur watched her every step, smirking. "Oh, don't sulk," he said loud enough for half the room to hear. "It's just water. You'll dry off." He expected laughter again. Instead, silence greeted him, the kind that made even the wealthy shift in their designer shoes. Amara turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze. The look wasn't anger. It was recognition, as if she'd seen his type 1,000 times before. The smile that touched her lips wasn't pleasant, it was precise. She remembered another night years ago, standing outside a conference she had funded, watching a security guard refuse her entry because her name wasn't on the list. She'd walked away then, quiet but resolved. Tonight she wasn't walking anywhere. Lydia Chen lifted her camera higher. The red light blinked. Around her, other guests pretended not to notice. But one man near the piano whispered, "That's going online, isn't it?" "Already," as another replied. #Langford Gala. Arthur's assistant, nervous and sweating, leaned in to whisper, "Sir, maybe we should." Arthur waved him off. "Relax. It's just optics. She's not important." He said it too loudly. The sentence slipped through the air and landed like a confession. Amara heard it. So did Lydia. So did everyone. She stepped closer to the center of the room, her heels clicking in slow rhythm, the kind of rhythm that rewrites attention. People turned one by one as if pulled by gravity. She spoke softly, but her voice carried. "Funny thing about importance," she said. "It changes depending on who's watching." The crowd stilled again. Lydia's camera caught it all, the billionaire's forced grin, the woman who wouldn't bow, and the silence that followed, sharp as glass. Arthur tried to laugh it off. "You've made your point," he said. "Now let's not turn this into a spectacle." But it was too late. The spectacle had already begun, and for once he wasn't the one directing it. The violinist lifted his bow, uncertain whether to play. Guests whispered, "Who is she?" Others said, "I think she owns something big," and Amara, still dripping under the lights, simply straightened her back and smiled faintly. She didn't need to speak again. The room had already shifted from amusement to unease, from prejudice to the first tremor of realization. The night wasn't ruined. It was about to be rewritten. The night deepened, and with it came an unease that no music could smooth over. The laughter had drained from the terrace, replaced by a quiet thrum, the sound of realization creeping in. Guests moved in small clusters, whispering names they hadn't dared to connect before. Amara Blake, Echelon Group, Port Acquisitions, Langford Holdings. The puzzle was forming. Arthur Langford felt it too. He stood beside the champagne tower, still forcing his smile, but the edges had begun to crack. His wife leaned in, whispering through her teeth, "Arthur, stop talking. They're filming." He scoffed. "Let them. Who are they going to believe, me or her?" A young waiter, barely 20, stood frozen near the buffet, holding a silver tray like a shield. His name tag read Marcus. He had seen everything, the shove, the splash, the smirk. His hands trembled, not from fear of Arthur, but from recognition. He'd seen Amara Blake's face before on a magazine cover pinned inside his mother's salon. Power, vision, legacy. Those words framed her photo. He whispered to himself, "That's her." Then louder, to no one in particular, "That's the woman who owns Echelon." A nearby guest heard him. "What did you say?" Marcus swallowed. "That's the woman he pushed. She says she's his investor." The whisper spread like current through the room, subtle, electric. Lydia Chen's camera was still rolling. The red light blinked like a heartbeat. She zoomed in, capturing every nervous flick of Arthur's wrist, every drop of water still sliding from Amara's gown. At the center of it all, Amara stood quietly near the marble column, her posture effortless, her gaze unwavering. She'd said nothing since her single line about importance, but silence can speak louder than apology. Around her, conversations faltered, glances collided, loyalties shifted in real time. Arthur raised his glass again, desperate to steer the mood. "Friends," he announced, "I think we've had enough drama for one night. Let's toast to civility." The word civility landed wrong. It sounded like command, not grace. Lydia stepped forward, her heart hammering. "Mr. Langford," she said, voice clear, "would you call pushing a guest into a pool civil?" Heads turned. A question had been asked out loud, the one everyone had avoided. Arthur blinked, recovering his smirk. "Miss, this is a private event. Maybe mind your credentials." Lydia didn't back down. "Maybe mind your behavior." Gasps. A ripple. For the first time, the billionaire was the one being measured. Amara's lips curved slightly, not into a smile but acknowledgement. The witness had spoken. Arthur's assistant, trembling, now approached with his phone discreetly in hand. "Sir," he murmured, "you might want to see this." On the screen, number Langford Gala, trending, thousands of retweets, the video of Arthur shoving Amara spreading like wildfire. The caption under Lydia's post read, "When arrogance meets ownership, watch till the end." Arthur's face drained of color. "Delete it," he hissed. "You can't," the assistant whispered. "It's everywhere." Across the room, Marcus the waiter stepped closer to Amara. He hesitated, then said quietly, "Ma'am, if you need anything." She stopped him gently with a glance. "Thank you," she said, "but tonight I'm fine." The calm in her voice disarmed him. He nodded and stepped back, his eyes wide, a witness transformed into believer. Arthur turned toward Amara, voice trembling beneath fake bravado. "You think a few tweets scare me? I've survived worse PR storms." Amara tilted her head slightly. "You've never survived the truth, Arthur." The line hit like glass shattering. Lydia's camera caught it, the exact moment his composure died. Behind them, screens in the ballroom began to flicker, the digital displays showing live updates from the charity fund. One by one, donation messages vanished, replaced by a new banner. Echelon Group, primary sponsor and investor. The logo pulsed, unmistakable. The crowd gasped. A woman near the staircase whispered, "She funded this entire event." Arthur spun around, furious. "Who authorized that banner?" A stagehand stuttered, "It's automatic, sir. It syncs with the primary donor's credentials." Arthur's mouth opened, but no words came. The weight of every assumption he'd made pressed against his ribs like iron. Amara took a step forward, still elegant, still soaked, her voice steady. "I didn't come here for recognition, Arthur. I came to see how you treat people when you think no one's watching." Silence. Lydia lowered her camera slowly. Marcus stared. Even the chandeliers seemed to hum softer, as if ashamed of the light they'd shone on arrogance. Then Amara turned slightly, glancing toward the terrace doors where the night waited, vast and black and patient. "I think," she said quietly, "you've shown enough." She walked past him. No rush, no triumph, just presence. And as she moved, the crowd parted without being asked. They didn't know whether to clap or bow. All they knew was that the balance in the room had shifted forever. The witness had awakened, and the reckoning had begun. The night had turned colder, though no one dared mention it. Outside, the pool rippled under moonlight like a secret refusing to settle. Inside, the ballroom still buzzed, not with music but with disbelief. The elite of Crescent City, draped in silk and self-importance, had just witnessed the unimaginable, a billionaire undone by his own arrogance, and a black woman standing taller than the room itself. Arthur Langford's face had shifted from charm to panic, from red to pale. His wife hovered beside him, clutching her pearls as if they could keep her above the tide. "Arthur," she hissed, "say something. Fix this," he snapped. "It's just optics. They'll forget." But Amara Blake knew better. Optics were power, and power was the one language this crowd truly understood. She stood near the glass doors, the night air brushing her damp shoulders, her emerald gown glistening like the surface of the pool she'd been thrown into. Lydia Chen's camera was still on her, capturing every breath, every stillness. Yet Amara wasn't posing for the world. She was listening to it, because the murmurs had changed. Once they were whispers of mockery. Now they were murmurs of apology, of curiosity, of fear. "Is that her?" someone asked. "Echelon's CEO, the one with the global contracts." Another voice trembling. "Arthur just pushed the woman funding half his company." Arthur heard them too. He slammed his glass on the table, shattering the stem. "Everyone calm down, she doesn't control anything here." The lie clanged louder than the crystal. Amara turned slowly. "Still pretending, Arthur," she said softly, each word a needle in silk. Her voice didn't need to rise. It was gravity itself, he sneered. "You think a few shares make you untouchable?" Amara's expression stayed neutral, but her eyes sharpened. "I don't think, Arthur. I know." The crowd went silent again, sensing the shift. Lydia zoomed closer, whispering to her mic, "You're watching history repeat itself, but this time the ending changes." Arthur took a step toward Amara, his shoes squeaking against the marble. He tried for a smile, failed. "You know what your problem is? You people always need to prove something." That sentence, those two words, "you people cracked something invisible in the air." Gasps. A woman near the bar covered her mouth. A man whispered, "He didn't just say that, he did, and he knew it." Arthur's voice faltered as the weight of the words landed, but the damage was done. It hung over the ballroom like smoke, dense and irreversible. Amara's face softened, not with hurt but memory. She saw another man years ago, standing behind a mahogany desk, saying those same words when she'd pitched her first logistics proposal. She'd walked out of that office, humiliated, broke, and determined. Tonight the past had walked right back to her, wearing the same arrogance, the same suit, the same fear of being outshone by someone he'd dismissed. She blinked once slow. "You people?" She repeated the phrase, tasting like iron on her tongue. Then evenly, "Do you mean people who built your company, or people who own it?" A murmur rippled through the crowd, half shock, half satisfaction. Lydia's camera caught every second. Marcus, the young waiter, lowered his tray and whispered, "That's the line." Arthur tried to recover. I didn't mean it like that." Amara took a step closer. "You did. You always do." The chandeliers trembled above them as if the air itself recoiled. From the far side of the room, a soft chime rang, Amara's phone still in her clutch. She glanced down at the message glowing across the screen. "Elena, all systems synced. Protocol Phoenix ready. Awaiting your command." Arthur noticed her glance, his voice shaky. "What are you doing?" Amara looked up calm, ending the conversation. He scoffed. "You can't end me." Her gaze didn't waver. "I don't have to. You did that yourself." Lydia caught her breath behind the camera. She knew what was coming, but couldn't look away. Arthur laughed nervously, turning toward the crowd for support that no longer existed. "This is ridiculous. She's bluffing." But no one laughed. No one moved. The spell of wealth had broken. Amara took a deep breath, then exhaled softly. "Do you remember what you said, Arthur? Accidents happen? Let's see how that feels when it's your empire sinking." Arthur's phone buzzed. Then another. His assistant's too. Notifications flashed, trading halted. Accounts frozen. Media alert issued. He looked at her, horror dawning. You can't." "I already did." Her voice was almost a whisper now, but it carried like thunder. The breaking point had arrived. Every eye in the ballroom stayed fixed on Amara Blake, soaked, radiant, unstoppable, while Arthur Langford's empire began to collapse from within, not with fire or shouting, but with the quiet precision of a woman who'd learned long ago that silence was her sharpest weapon. And as she turned toward the crowd, she said one last thing, barely audible but heavy enough to fill the room. "Never mistake grace for weakness." The guests didn't applaud yet. They just stood still, breathless, watching a reckoning unfold in real time. For a moment no one breathed. The ballroom, drenched in golden light, had gone utterly still. The violins stood silent. The air smelled faintly of perfumed chlorine and fear. Arthur Langford clutched his phone, his fingers trembling as notifications flooded the screen. Account access denied. Trading suspended. Press alert in queue. He looked up wild-eyed. "What did you do?" Amara Blake didn't move. Her emerald gown clung to her frame like liquid power, her reflection shimmering in the marble floor beneath her heels. "I told you," she said calmly. "I ended the conversation." Arthur's voice cracked. You hacked something?" Her tone didn't change. "It's not hacking when it's your own system." Lydia Chen's camera caught every word, the crowd now half in awe, half in disbelief. Arthur's wife whispered, "Arthur, she's serious." He turned on her, desperate. "She can't be. She's bluffing." But across the room, the large LED donation board flickered again. The Langford Foundation logo disappeared, replaced by the stark white insignia of Echelon Group. Beneath it, corporate restructure initiated. Authorization A. Blake. The room erupted in murmurs. Guests turned to one another, curious, frightened, fascinated. The power dynamics had flipped clean and irreversible. Amara didn't gloat. She simply lifted her phone, speaking with quiet precision. "Elena," she said, voice low but firm. Confirm transfer of Langford subsidiary control to Echelon Group effective immediately. Also suspend all internal access from current management. On the other end, her assistant's voice came through the speaker, crisp, professional, undeniable. Confirmed, Miss Blake. The board has approved. Langford Holdings is now under full echelon supervision. Arthur stumbled backward. That's impossible. You owned, Amara corrected gently. Past tense. He looked around for support, but the faces that had once smiled for him now avoided his gaze. The same people who had laughed at her humiliation now watched him unravel with cold fascination. From the back, Marcus the waiter stepped forward, his voice small but steady. Ma'am, he said softly, it's all over the news. She turned her head slightly. What does it say? He swallowed. It says Echelon Group executed a surprise takeover. Langford assets seized under non-compliance. Arthur's jaw tightened. You planned this. Amara met his eyes unblinking. No, Arthur. You planned this the moment you thought you could humiliate me. Lydia's hand shook as she filmed, but she didn't lower her camera. The story had transformed before her eyes, no longer a scandal but a symbol. Arthur tried to laugh, his voice brittle. You can't just walk in here and take everything. Amara stepped closer, her heels barely making a sound on the marble. I didn't walk in, Arthur. You invited me. You sent the invitation. You poured the champagne. You handed me the stage yourself. A ripple went through the room. The words landed like verdicts. From somewhere near the terrace, a man whispered, "This is unreal." Another replied, "No, this is justice." Arthur's assistant, pale and sweating, muttered, "Sir, security's asking for instructions. The media vans are outside." Arthur spun toward the glass doors, his voice breaking. "Tell them nothing. I need a statement." Amara spoke before he could move. "Here's your statement," she said quietly. "Your company's culture reflects your leadership, and tonight it's exposed itself in front of the world." Lydia captured the exact second he froze, his posture collapsing under the truth. Then, with measured grace, Amara turned to the stunned guests. Her voice softened, but it carried through every inch of marble and glass. Power doesn't reveal character. It exposes it. Silence fell again, deeper this time. A woman near the bar whispered, "She's incredible." Another murmured, "She didn't raise her voice once." Arthur's wife placed a trembling hand on his arm. "Arthur, it's over." He looked at her like a man realizing the ground beneath him had always been borrowed. Amara glanced toward Lydia. "Keep recording," she said gently. "People need to see this. Not for me, for everyone who's been told they don't belong." The journalist nodded, tears welling but steady. Outside, flashes of cameras lit the terrace. Reporters had arrived. The pool where Amara had fallen now mirrored the chaos inside. Calm water reflecting broken pride. Arthur tried one last plea. "Amara, please, we can talk. I can apologize." She stopped him with a single look. "You already spoke, Arthur. The world just finally heard you." And with that, she walked past him toward the doors, each step deliberate, unhurried. The guests parted again, instinctively reverently. As she reached the threshold, the night breeze caught her hair and the chandelier light traced her silhouette, not as the soaked victim of a cruel joke, but as the woman who turned humiliation into empire. The turn was complete, and nothing about the world inside that ballroom would ever be the same again. Outside, the night hummed with flashing lights. Reporters swarmed the gates, shouting questions into microphones, their words muffled through the tall glass walls of the Langford estate. Inside, the crowd still stood frozen, guests trapped between disbelief and revelation, watching power reorder itself in real time. Amara Blake paused by the grand staircase. Her gown still shimmered the emerald fabric, now drying into soft folds that caught every glint of chandelier light. She looked untouched by the chaos, composed in a way that frightened those who once mocked her. Arthur Langford followed, voice hoarse, desperate. "Amara, listen, whatever this is, we can fix it, we can talk." "There's no need to." She turned slowly, and the single look on her face silenced him mid-sentence. Her voice was calm. "Arthur, when you pushed me into that pool, you thought you were making a point." She took a step closer, eyes locked on him. "Now I'll make mine." The guests leaned in. Lydia Chen, still filming, steadied her camera. Marcus the waiter stood near the doors, clutching the silver tray to his chest. No one spoke. Amara continued, each word deliberate. "You called me help, you called me trash. You laughed and they laughed with you, but you never stopped to ask who I was." Arthur tried to interrupt. "I didn't know." She cut him off gently, her tone never rising. "You didn't want to know," Lydia whispered to her mic. This is the moment. The reveal. Amara took another step forward, the echo of her heels sharp and rhythmic. You see, Arthur, every company under your name, the shipping contracts, the freight hubs, the port leases, they all operate under echelon infrastructure. My infrastructure. Arthur blinked confusion, turning to dread. That's not possible. Oh, it's very possible, she said softly. You just never checked who owned the rails you built your empire on. Gasps rippled across the room. Someone whispered, she's the backbone investor. Another guest covered her mouth. Amara reached into her clutch, pulled out a small, sleek tablet, and with one tap, a large projection screen on the ballroom wall lit up. Echelon Group's logo filled the display, followed by contract records, each signed and time-stamped her name on every page. Arthur's voice cracked. That can't, those are internal files, they are, Amara said, and they're mine. The silence that followed was almost holy. She looked around the room, letting the truth settle on every jeweled neckline and trembling hand. For years, Arthur, you sold the illusion of control. You stood on stages and spoke about power legacy leadership, but all along you were standing on my foundation. Lydia lowered her camera slightly, her eyes wide with awe. This isn't revenge, she whispered. It's revelation. Arthur stumbled backward into a chair, his confidence gone, his empire unraveling in front of the same people who had once worshipped him. Amara closed the tablet and said almost tenderly, You should have known better than to push the hand that held your fortune. The crowd erupted, not with cheers, but with a collective exhale. Phones lifted, flashes burst. The image of Arthur's collapse and Amara's composure was already spreading beyond those walls across a world hungry for justice wrapped in grace. Arthur tried to speak, but his voice was drowned out by the hum of devices, by the truth replaying in real time. Amara simply turned away, her chin high, her silence final. Lydia's camera zoomed in on her face, calm, luminous, unbothered. You just witnessed history, she said quietly to her live feed. A man lost his empire and a woman reclaimed her narrative. And in that single blinding moment, every guest understood they hadn't just attended a gala, they had witnessed a reckoning. The applause didn't come right away. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath, suspended between fear and fascination. Then the phones began to buzz again. The whispers turned into murmurs, the murmurs into realization. Arthur Langford sank into the nearest chair, his expensive cufflinks glinting under the chandelier light, but the man wearing them suddenly looked small, reduced, fragile, irrelevant. On his phone, stock notifications exploded across the screen. Langford Holdings down 37%, 42%. 59%. His assistant whispered, Sir, they're pulling out. Every partner, every investor. Arthur blinked hard, his throat dry. No, that can't do. But it was happening in real time. The monitors along the ballroom wall meant to display charity numbers now showed live financial feeds. The red arrows plunged like knives. Guests stared, mouths half open. Amara Blake didn't move. She stood in the center of the marble floor, framed by the soft glow of the chandeliers, a figure of impossible composure. She looked almost ethereal, soaked silk gown, calm, breath eyes unwavering. Arthur staggered to his feet, panic bleeding through his voice. You've ruined me. Amara tilted her head just slightly. No, Arthur. You ruined yourself when you confused arrogance for strength. Lydia Chen, still filming, whispered into her mic. This is it. The collapse. We're watching it unfold second by second. Arthur pointed at Amara, desperate for control. This isn't justice. This is vengeance. Amara's answer came without hesitation. Justice only feels like vengeance to the guilty. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was simply truth. Arthur looked around, searching the crowd for a single ally. None met his gaze. The same people who had laughed with him now stared at the floor, their silence heavier than condemnation. His wife finally spoke, voice shaking. Arthur, please, stop. He turned toward her, but there was no saving left to do. The empire he'd built on vanity and inheritance was dissolving faster than his denial could catch up. Amara took a step forward, slow, deliberate, and the room shifted again. You once said money buys class, she reminded him. Tonight proved it doesn't even buy decency. A small sound broke from Arthur, something between a gasp and a laugh. He looked at her like a man seeing gravity for the first time. You wanted to destroy me. Amara's expression softened. No, I wanted you to understand me. But you chose not to. Marcus, the young waiter, stood near the buffet, still holding his empty tray. He whispered to himself. She didn't even raise her voice. Behind him, one of the guests began to clap, hesitant, then stronger. Another joined. Then another. Within seconds, the applause filled the room like rain breaking over glass. Not the polite kind used at galas. This was recognition. This was release. Arthur covered his face, trembling. Every camera in the room caught the image. The billionaire broke in the crowd, rising around the woman he had tried to humiliate. Amara turned slightly toward Lydia. "End the stream," she said quietly. "They've seen enough." Lydia lowered her camera eyes, glistening. "Yes, ma'am." For a moment, all that could be heard was the hum of electricity, the soft buzz of notifications, the sound of an empire breathing its last. Then Amara spoke again, to no one in particular. "When they tell you to know your place, remember, they only say that because they're afraid you might take theirs." It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The sentence lingered like music, quiet, steady, final. Arthur Langford stared at her, lost. His world, money pride control, had collapsed around him, but hers stood taller than ever. And as the applause swelled again, Amara Blake turned toward the terrace doors, the night breeze sweeping her curls across her shoulders. For the first time all evening she smiled, not in triumph, but in peace. The collapse was complete, and somewhere deep inside that silence justice exhaled. Outside, dawn threatened the horizon, a faint, gray glow brushing against the city skyline. Inside the Langford estate, the air had shifted. The same ballroom that once echoed with champagne laughter now pulsed with something quieter, heavier respect. Amara Blake stood near the pool again, the same pool that had swallowed her only an hour before. Its surface was still now calm and reflective, holding both the night sky and her silhouette. Around her, the last few guests lingered, unsure whether to speak or to stay silent in her presence. Arthur Langford was gone, escorted out discreetly by his own security team, faces grim, no photographers allowed. His empire had imploded before sunrise. The board had voted him out while the world watched the viral stream. And there, in the echo of his downfall, Amara remained unshaken, regal, and utterly composed. Lydia Chen approached her slowly, camera lowered this time. "Miss Blake," she said, voice softer now, "do you have a statement for the press?" Amara turned toward her. For a moment she said nothing. Then she smiled, small, graceful, dangerous in its calm. "A statement," she echoed. "No, Lydia." Tonight was the statement. Lydia hesitated, unsure if that was an answer or the end of one. Amara stepped closer to the pool, her heels clicking softly against the marble. "You know," she said quietly, "for years they called me ambitious, like it was an insult. They said I was lucky. They said I didn't belong in rooms like this." She paused, looking down at the reflection rippling below. "So I stopped waiting for permission to enter them. I built my own." Lydia swallowed hard, nodding, her recorder trembling slightly in her hand. "What do you want people to take from what happened tonight?" Amara lifted her gaze, her voice steady as dawn. "That silence is not submission. That grace is not weakness. And that power, when held with integrity, doesn't need to shout." The words hung in the air, quiet but absolute. The few staff who remained stopped what they were doing, listening. Marcus, the young waiter, stood by the doorway, eyes wide. "Ma'am," he said softly, "that line, it's going to change people." Amara turned her head slightly, her smile faint. "Then let it." Behind her, the sky lightened, gold edging into blue. The first rays of morning slipped through the glass, catching on the sequins of her gown. It sparkled again, but this time not with water or humiliation, with light. Lydia stepped back, composing herself. "Thank you, Miss Blake, for everything." Amara nodded once. "Tell the truth, Lydia, not the drama. The truth is enough." The reporter left, and Amara was alone again. Just her, the pool, and the quiet hum of justice fulfilled. Her phone buzzed once in her clutch. A message from Elena. "All systems stable. Takeover complete. Board unanimous. Congratulations, ma'am." Amara typed back only 2 words. "Let's rebuild." Then she slipped the phone away, took a slow breath, and turned toward the sunrise. The light touched her face, soft and gold, framing her like a portrait of calm defiance. Behind her, the last of the guests filed out, whispering fragments of her name like a legend already forming. The woman who didn't scream, the woman who turned humiliation into ownership. Amara looked once more at the water, the same place where arrogance had tried to drown her, and smiled. "I didn't raise my voice," she murmured almost to herself. "I raised the standard." The wind rippled across the pool, carrying her reflection into motion, a symbol of transformation. And as the sun finally broke over the glass walls of the Langford estate, one truth remained clear. Power had changed hands. And dignity, quiet and steady, had won. By the time the sun fully rose over Crescent City, the Langford estate looked like a monument to irony, elegant, silent, emptied of power. The valet circle that once overflowed with luxury cars now stood half-deserted reporters clustered beyond the gates, their microphones chasing a story that had already told itself. Inside, the marble floors still gleamed, though the echoes had changed. No more champagne laughter, no more applause for the powerful. Only the distant hum of servers shutting down systems that no longer belonged to the man whose initials were etched into every corner of the house. Amara Blake walked slowly through the grand hallway, her heels leaving faint, confident clicks. The events of the night had passed into something larger, legend in motion. Her phone buzzed endlessly, news anchors requesting interviews, executives offering apologies disguised as praise, investors asking to meet. She ignored them all. Instead, she stopped near the wide glass wall that overlooked the pool, the same pool where it began. Outside, the water was perfectly still, now reflecting the early light like a mirror of peace. For a long moment, she simply watched it. The silence wasn't empty. It was earned. Behind her, Marcus appeared at the edge of the room, hesitant. His uniform was damp at the sleeves. He had stayed behind to help clean up after the chaos. "Miss Blake," he said softly. She turned warm but steady. "Marcus," he fidgeted with his tray. I wanted to thank you for what you did, for standing up like that." Amara tilted her head. "For standing up," she repeated. He nodded. "Most people, they would have shouted or walked out. You didn't do either. You just stood, and everyone saw it." She smiled faintly. "That's the thing about dignity, Marcus. It doesn't need volume. It just needs to stay." He nodded, eyes wide, unsure what else to say. Then, almost shyly, "My mom runs a small shipping firm. You probably don't remember, but your company helped her 2 years ago. She said if she ever met you, she'd tell you you changed her life." Amara's expression softened. "Tell her she changed her own. We just cleared the path." Marcus smiled, straightened his posture, and left the room a little taller. Alone again, Amara turned back to the pool. Her reflection shimmered, no longer fractured by ripples but whole. The woman looking back at her wasn't just the CEO who'd taken over an empire. She was something quieter, stronger. A symbol. Her phone buzzed again. A call from Elena. "Everything's stable," her assistant said. "Langford's team has signed the full transfer. You're officially in control." Amara nodded. "Good. Let's redirect their charity funds to real programs. Education infrastructure, women-led startups. No vanity projects." Elena hesitated, then asked, "How do you feel, ma'am?" Amara looked out over the water, the city skyline glowing beyond it. "Calm," she said simply. "Exactly as I should." When the call ended, she walked toward the terrace doors, pausing only once to glance over her shoulder. The ballroom glimmered behind her, still beautiful but empty of illusion. Outside, the air was fresh-washed clean by the night's storm. She stepped onto the stone path by the pool, the place where arrogance had tried to erase her and failed. The world would talk, she knew. They'd replay the videos, the quotes, the moment she said, "You just assaulted the woman who owns your company." They'd call it poetic justice. They'd call it power. But to her, it wasn't revenge. It was repair. She looked up at the morning sky, whispering to herself, "They tried to drown me in their world. I built my own and learned to breathe underwater." The breeze caught her words, scattering them into light. Behind her, the estate doors closed with a quiet finality. The last of the cameras turned away. And as Amara Blake walked toward the waiting car, sunlight glinting off the emerald folds of her gown, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because somewhere between that first shove and this sunrise, the world had learned the truth. Grace isn't the absence of power. It's the mastery of it.